Osgood Perkins, the director of last year's Longlegs and son of legendary horror icon Anthony Perkins, is back with a new film, The Monkey. This is an adaptation of, I believe, a Stephen King short, and anytime a Stephen King story is adapted for the big screen, it's like flipping a coin. You never know what you're going to get. Quite honestly, I haven't been a huge fan of Oz Perkins' previous films until Longlegs. Longlegs was the first one that truly clicked for me. I understood the themes. It was genuinely terrifying in parts. It didn't fully work, but I enjoyed it, and I was hoping that this would be a continuation on the upward trend. The Monkey is a very different film from Longlegs, and I respect that he's trying to do something different and not just making the same film over and over again. This is, I would almost call it a horror comedy, but there's so little horror and so much comedy that it's almost more of, how do I describe this? It's an absurdist, gory splatterfest, for lack of a better way of explaining it. So the plot of The Monkey follows two twin brothers, Hal and Bill. They discover an antique, wind-up monkey toy that belonged to their father, and as soon as they start messing with it, mysterious deaths start occurring all around them, leading them to believe that this thing has supernatural abilities. I do find it pretty hysterical that Disney has trademarked having a toy monkey that has cymbals, so they had to pivot to having a drum set for this film. Toy Story 3, that scene is pretty terrifying. It's scarier than anything in this movie. But once again, this is much more of a comedy. It's absolutely ridiculous in every sense of the word. And I do want to real quick just touch on a personal anecdote that Perkins has revealed when talking about the film. And I think context does matter, maybe not in the quality of the film, but at least in uncovering the intent of an artist and what they're trying to convey with their themes. I'm going to be paraphrasing here because I can't remember where I read this, but Perkins has spoken about the film in that it's meant to be this commentary on how absurd and out of the blue death can be. And he relates it to his own life by talking about the death of his parents. His father, of course, was very famous and died from AIDS, and then his mother died less than a decade later in the 9/11 terrorist attacks. When I think about what I saw in The Monkey under that context, it does make a lot more sense to me what he was trying to accomplish, and I could see how it could almost be therapeutic for him to make a movie in which every character death is so ridiculous. And he does have the characters blatantly explain the themes at times. They say things like, the only sure thing about life is that we all die. Sometimes those deaths are so absurd, insane, and unpredictable, and maybe even a bit unceremonious. And I think the idea that Perkins was going for here was, if death is that crazy and instantaneous, let's just make it ridiculous. Let's go huge with it and not take it so seriously so we can all get a laugh out of it. And the movie is also trying to touch on generational burdens that fathers pass on to their sons. I don't know that it really succeeded in saying anything or providing any worthwhile commentary on that aspect. Unfortunately, all of that stuff that I just talked about wasn't enough for me to like The Monkey in execution. And what I want to say is that I didn't dislike this movie because I didn't understand it. I hope everything that I just covered with Perkins' real-life experiences will lead you to understand that it's not that I didn't understand what this movie was going for. I disliked The Monkey because it only has one trick up its sleeve, and it plays that card repeatedly, over and over, nonstop, and each time it gets a little less interesting. It has been a while since I've seen a movie with dialogue this intentionally bad, and it's difficult to critique a film like this because it's almost difficult to determine whether there's more merit to watching a movie that doesn't know how bad it is, or a movie that knows exactly how bad it is and plays that up to get a laugh out of the audience. But just like most things in this movie, at a certain point it started to feel like The Monkey was whacking me in the head with his drumstick over and over again with the same exact gags, the same types of jokes, and they just lose their effect the more the movie goes on. I wish I would have been paying more attention or taking notes so I could give you specific examples of lines of dialogue. The only one I can think of right now is there's a character who asks another character if they want to go dancing sometime, and the other character says, "What, you mean with our bodies? How else do you dance?" That's what I mean when I'm talking about purposefully bad dialogue. Every character in this film speaks like they never made it past kindergarten. I also found some of their motivations for the things they do to be very over-exaggerated, which I guess is fitting for the tone that this is going for. But the whole concept of this monkey, right? You have to turn the key in its back to activate it because it's cursed and it causes people to die in very Final Destination type absurd ways when somebody does so. So my solution to the problem is, why not just not turn the key at all? I mean, the monkey follows these two brothers who are our main characters everywhere they go. Every way they try to dispose of it, it manages to find its way back to them. So keep it close, but maybe just don't turn the key and people will stop dying. One thing that I have seen being universally praised about this movie are the death scenes, the kills, right? The kills are so absurd, they're ridiculous, they're creative. Some of them were funny, some of them were absurd, but a lot of the deaths in this movie are just people exploding for no reason. For instance, there's a scene in which a woman jumps into a pool and is electrocuted, and her body just explodes on impact with the water. I'm talking like guts, blood, entrails spraying everywhere. It is comical. Yes, the death scenes are absurd and over the top, but I wouldn't exactly call them creative, and it's clear that a lot of them were achieved through a mixture of practical and CGI effects. The CGI stuff doesn't look as good as the practical, so it's easy to separate which is which. I like horror comedies. I want to see more of them made. I think it's an underappreciated subgenre. But I think when these movies are made, they need to balance their tones. This movie does not have a single effective dramatic moment, not only because I didn't feel like I got to know the characters at all, even the two twin brothers played by Theo James, who I guess is fine, but also because it's so flipping absurd and nonstop that there's never a moment in which the film takes its time to actually stop and explore any degree of actual nuance when it comes to its musings about death and parenthood. I think this is going to be a very polarizing movie. Most people will either love it or hate it. I always aim to give a little bit of a more nuanced take. I didn't hate this movie, but I definitely steer way more towards the negative side than the positive side. But oddly enough, I still would encourage people to go and see this if it sounds like it's up their alley. My goal when reviewing movies on this channel has always been to try and give you a good idea of what you're in for, to make your best informed decision based on your tastes. When it comes to my subjective opinion on The Monkey, while there were things that worked in it, most of those things took place earlier on in the film because the longer it went on, the more it felt overplayed and like the tone just did not jive with the themes that they were trying to convey. I also saw the movie with a friend and he turned to me after the credits started to roll and told me he thought it was one of the worst movies he had ever seen. Case in point, that's why I think this movie's going to be polarizing. Some will love it, some will hate it. I'm going to give The Monkey 2 stars. Damn it, this always happens when I do these unscripted reviews, but I forgot to talk about certain elements such as the cast. I think I did briefly touch on Theo James, who I thought was fine as the lead twin brothers, but there is a younger counterpart, a younger actor who plays the two twins when they were kids. I didn't think he left a very good impression, and once again, I hate to critique child actors. I always say that, but even in the context of not taking this movie seriously, I just thought he came off as very flat. If I had to pick a standout, probably Tatiana Maslany. I thought she was quite good in the limited screen time that she had. So that's going to wrap up my thoughts on The Monkey. Clearly, I wasn't a huge fan of this one, but hey, maybe some of you will. So if you do see it, be sure to let me know down in the comments what you think of it. Hit that like button as well as subscribe while you're at it. If you want to see more content like this, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.